On July 20th, 1969, the Apollo 11 mission made history as its lunar module gently touched down on the surface of the moon. Moments later, Neil Armstrong descended the ladder and became the first human to set foot on the moon, marking a monumental achievement with his famous words.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
But what if someone told you that you got fooled by NASA? The United States claimed victory in the space race by achieving what many thought impossible, landing astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon during NASA's Apollo program. As Armstrong set foot on the lunar surface, millions around the globe watched the historic moment live on their televisions, celebrating this unprecedented achievement. Around 400,000 people, including brilliant engineers, scientists, technicians, and countless others, worked tirelessly to make the moon landing a reality. But did it actually happen? It's been over 50 years since the historic moon landing, yet many still refuse to believe it actually happened. These non-believers create their own theories, claiming that the Apollo program was a hoax and that the moon landing was staged on Earth. They ask questions like, why are there no stars in the background of space? Or, how could the flag flutter without air? Did America lie to the world? What is the truth behind the historic moon landings? Let's try to understand this story. After landing on the moon, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin spent 2 hours and 15 minutes outside the lunar module, completing important tasks. When they returned to the module, Buzz Aldrin accidentally broke off a crucial circuit breaker that controlled the ascent engine. Without this switch, they couldn't fire the engine to leave the moon, putting their return to Earth at risk. But we will talk about it later in the video. As Neil Armstrong stepped onto the surface of the moon, he made history, leaving behind his iconic footprints. The photograph of these footprints has become one of the most recognizable images from the Apollo 11 mission. However, conspiracy theorists often claim there's something suspicious about this. According to them, when comparing the sole of Armstrong's boots from Earth photographs to the famous footprint on the moon, they don't match. They argue this discrepancy is evidence that the moon landing was staged and that the wrong footprints were left behind as a mistake during the filming of a faked moon landing. In reality, every astronaut had to wear protective boot covers before stepping onto the lunar surface. The reason? The lunar soil is extremely sharp and abrasive, capable of cutting through the regular boots. Since the boots would constantly be in contact with the moon's surface, double protection was essential. These boot covers were equipped with silicone soles, specifically designed to shield the astronauts from the harsh conditions, protecting them from extreme temperatures and the jagged lunar rocks. This means that the footprints captured in the famous photos weren't from the astronauts' regular boots, but from these specialized boot covers. This explains the difference in the sole patterns, debunking the conspiracy theory once and for all. After Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin descended onto the lunar surface, Buzz Aldrin became the second person to step on the moon. Less than an hour later, both astronauts set up cameras and planted the American flag into the lunar soil. In an iconic image, you can clearly see Buzz Aldrin saluting the flag. This image sparked one of the most famous conspiracy theories. According to the theory, the flag shouldn't appear to wave, as there's no atmosphere on the moon. However, in the photo, the flag looks as though it's fluttering in the breeze, raising questions about whether the moon landing was real or staged. If you look closely at the image, the answer reveals itself. Notice the crossbar at the top of the American flag? NASA certainly wasn't careless. They knew there was no atmosphere or wind on the moon. That's precisely why they used a crossbar to keep the flag fully unfurled, ensuring it would stand out in the vacuum of space. As for the flag's wrinkled appearance, it's not by accident either. The flag was tightly packed in the lunar module for at least 4 to 5 days before being planted. Just like when you pack clothes in a suitcase for a few days and they get creased, the flag's fabric showed similar wrinkles from being folded for an extended period. The American flag was planted on the moon, marking a historic moment as the United States claimed victory in the space race. After that monumental step, the astronauts were tasked with completing various activities they'd been trained for on Earth, such as collecting samples and setting up equipment on the lunar surface. During their mission, they conducted experiments, recorded data, and took numerous photographs. However, there's something peculiar about these photographs. A basic principle we know is that when there's a single light source, like the sun, all shadows should appear parallel. Yet, in many of the moon landing photos, the shadows are noticeably non-parallel. In some images, it almost appears as if studio lights were used to create the scene. If the sun is the only source of light on the moon, why aren't the shadows parallel? This theory suggests that the shadows in photographs taken on the moon's surface should all be parallel if the sun were the only light source, and the fact that some appear non-parallel led conspiracists to argue that artificial lighting was used in a studio. This idea became more prominent after the 1978 movie Capricorn 1, which depicted a faked Mars landing, and was further fueled by conspiracy theorists in the 1990s, particularly after 1998 books like Bill Kaysing's We Never Went to the Moon, America's $30 billion Swindle, 1974, and later documentaries like Fox's Conspiracy Theory, Did We Land on the Moon?, aired in 2001. In reality, the non-parallel shadows are easily explained by perspective distortion and the uneven terrain on the moon. On the moon, just like on Earth, shadows appear non-parallel when captured by a camera because of perspective. If you view two objects from different angles or distances, their shadows might not seem parallel, even though they are cast by the same light source. This is similar to train tracks appearing to converge at a distance, even though they are parallel. And the moon's surface is not flat. It has craters, ridges, and rocks. When shadows fall on an uneven surface, they can appear to go in different directions or lengths because the ground height is varying. This contributes to the illusion of non-parallel shadows. As I mentioned earlier in the video, after spending 2.5 hours on the lunar surface, both astronauts prepared to return to the lunar module. However, during this critical phase, a mishap occurred. Buzz Aldrin accidentally broke one of the circuit breakers controlling the main ascent engine. This circuit breaker was essential. It provided the power needed to start the engine that would lift them off the moon's surface and return them to the command module orbiting above. Without it, they would be stranded. In a moment of ingenuity, Aldrin spotted a flat-tipped marker and used it as a makeshift tool. Carefully, he used the pen to push the circuit breaker's button back into place. Inside the lunar module, each circuit breaker operated as a switch. When pushed in, the circuit would engage, allowing power to flow. When pulled out, it would disengage. Thanks to Aldrin's quick thinking, the circuit was successfully engaged, and the engine was powered up. With that, both astronauts could begin their journey back home, ensuring the success of Apollo 11. One common question from those who doubt the moon landings is, why aren't stars visible in the images and videos taken on the moon? The answer is simple if you understand a bit about photography. Just like on Earth, stars often don't appear in photos because they are much dimmer than other objects in the scene. The same effect happened on the moon. The lunar surface was extremely bright, reflecting intense sunlight. To capture clear images of the astronauts and equipment, the cameras were set with fast shutter speeds and narrow apertures, allowing less light to enter. This meant that faint objects like stars didn't register in the photos. Also, all the Apollo moon landings occurred during the lunar daytime. Even though the sky looked pitch black, because there's no atmosphere on the moon to scatter light, the intense sunlight reflecting off the surface still dominated the exposure settings, making stars too faint to capture. That's all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new along the way. And if NASA had tricked everyone with Apollo 11, then why on earth would they risk faking it 5 more times? Doesn't make sense, does it? Thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe if you want more space content like this. Until next time, keep looking up and keep questioning everything.